Have you ever known someone who keeps going back to a person who hurts them? Or maybe you've experienced it yourself. You know the relationship is unhealthy. You know it's causing pain. Yet somehow, walking away feels impossible. Why? Why do toxic relationships often feel more addictive than healthy ones? The answer has less to do with love and more to do with psychology. And once you understand what's happening inside your brain, everything starts to make sense. Many people assume that if someone stays in a toxic relationship, it must mean they're weak, but that's not true. In fact, intelligent, strong, and emotionally aware people can become trapped in toxic relationships too. Because toxic relationships don't just affect your emotions. They change the way your brain responds to rewards, attachment, and uncertainty. Healthy relationships are usually stable. Toxic relationships are not. One day you're receiving affection, attention, and praise. The next day you're ignored, criticized, or rejected. This constant emotional switching creates an intense roller coaster, and surprisingly, your brain becomes hooked on it. Psychologists have discovered something interesting. Rewards become more addictive when they're unpredictable. Think about slot machines. People don't become addicted because they win every time. They become addicted because they never know when they'll win. Toxic relationships work in a similar way. You never know when affection is coming, so you keep waiting for the next emotional reward. There's a psychological concept called intermittent reinforcement. This means rewards appear randomly instead of consistently. Studies show this creates some of the strongest behavioral attachments. When a toxic partner occasionally shows love after causing pain, the emotional reward feels incredibly powerful, and the cycle becomes harder to break. In healthy relationships, kindness is normal. But in toxic relationships, kindness becomes rare. Because it's rare, it feels more valuable. A simple compliment can feel amazing. A small act of affection can feel extraordinary. The brain begins chasing these emotional highs. Many people mistake emotional intensity for love. They think constant drama means passion. They believe emotional chaos means the connection is special. But intensity and love are not the same thing. A relationship can feel intense while still being deeply unhealthy. Every time something pleasurable happens, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine isn't just the feel-good chemical. It's also involved in motivation and anticipation. It makes you want to seek rewards again. In toxic relationships, occasional moments of affection can trigger powerful dopamine responses. Soon, the relationship becomes less about happiness and more about chasing. You're constantly trying to get back to the good moments. You remember how amazing things felt at the beginning, and you keep hoping those moments will return permanently, even when reality says otherwise. This is where something called a trauma bond can develop. A trauma bond forms when cycles of mistreatment are mixed with moments of kindness and affection. The person causing the pain also becomes the source of comfort, and that creates a powerful emotional attachment. People often ask, if it's toxic, why don't they just leave? But trauma bonds make leaving feel emotionally painful. The brain has become conditioned to seek relief from the very person causing distress. One of the strongest forces in toxic relationships is hope. Hope that they'll change. Hope that things will go back to how they were. Hope that the good version of them will finally stay. Unfortunately, hope can sometimes keep people trapped longer than fear. The human brain has a tendency to focus on emotional memories. When people think about leaving, they often remember the best moments, the romantic dates, the deep conversations, the rare moments of affection. These memories can overshadow the reality of ongoing harm. For many people, the fear of loneliness feels overwhelming. Even an unhealthy connection can seem safer than being alone. But staying in a toxic relationship often creates a deeper loneliness than being single ever could. Humans are naturally drawn toward what's familiar, even if familiar means unhealthy. If someone grew up around emotional instability, toxic behavior may feel strangely normal, not because it's healthy, but because it's known. Without awareness, people often repeat familiar relationship patterns. Different partner, same emotional experience. The brain keeps choosing what feels familiar instead of what feels healthy. Many movies and stories romanticize struggle. They teach us that real love requires endless pain and sacrifice. But healthy love doesn't require constant suffering. A relationship should bring peace more often than chaos. Healthy relationships can actually feel boring to someone used to toxicity. Why? Because there are fewer emotional highs and lows. There's consistency, reliability, respect. And for someone addicted to chaos, stability can initially feel unfamiliar. Leaving a toxic relationship can feel similar to withdrawal. There may be cravings, obsessive thoughts, a strong urge to reconnect. This doesn't mean the relationship was healthy. It means the attachment was powerful. The good news is that the brain can heal. With time and distance, those intense emotional cravings begin to weaken. The nervous system slowly returns to balance, and clarity starts to replace confusion. One of the most important steps in healing is rebuilding self-worth. Learning your value, setting boundaries, recognizing red flags, and understanding that respect should never be optional in a relationship. Many people eventually discover something surprising. Peace feels better than excitement. Consistency feels better than unpredictability. And genuine care feels better than emotional games. But it often takes experience to learn that lesson. Real love isn't about chasing someone. It's not about constantly proving your worth. It's not about surviving endless emotional storms. Real love is built on trust, respect, honesty, and safety, the things toxic relationships rarely provide. So, why do toxic relationships feel addictive? Because they exploit some of the most powerful systems in the human brain: uncertainty, reward, attachment, hope, and emotional conditioning. But understanding the psychology behind the addiction is the first step toward breaking free. Because once you recognize the cycle, you stop confusing emotional chaos with love, and you start choosing something healthier, something calmer, something real. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And remember, the strongest relationships don't make you constantly chase love. They make you feel secure enough that you never have to.